BBC Radio Merseyside.
Now, many of you already know that Liverpool is the home to Britain's first mosque. What is less well known is the role played by a young Liverpool woman who converted to Islam and helped to establish the mosque at Brome Terrace. Her name was Fatima Elizabeth Cates, and her story has been told in a new book by Hamid Mahmood. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that Hamid is with me now. Good morning to you, Hamid.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, and thank you for coming on. Tell us about how Fatima, her background, how she came to convert to Islam.
Yeah, so she is an ordinary Victorian woman from the Church of England. And what's fascinating is out of nowhere, she decides to accept Islam in the July of 1887. And that was, in the face of endless opposition, both at home from her mother, from her husband, and also people on the streets of Liverpool. They would throw stones at her when they found out that she accepted Islam, mud, and also wipe horses' manure on her face. And as you rightly said, she went on to co-found the first mosque of England, and she also became its treasurer, its committee member. And from this very first mosque, she calls for the emancipation of women through Islam. So in a sense, she's an ordinary woman, but in a sense, she's unordinary in her spiritual journey and what she stands for now for British Muslims.
Now, Hamid, converting from one faith to another these days is quite a big deal, isn't it? To have done it in the late 1800s, it must have been unbelievable to the people around her.
Oh, absolutely. And when she did accept Islam, she was like the third convert or the second convert of Abdullah, who, also co-founds the mosque. And as soon as people begin to find out, doors begin to close. Even where they would meet to discuss Islam, that room was then taken away from them. The landlord didn't want anything to do with this, just these three early Muslim converts. And, they find themselves homeless. And it was in 1889, in December, that they found number 8 Brome Terrace. So, yeah, it was a difficult time, and more so then than I would say now.
And how was Islam viewed by, Christians, really, I guess, at that time in Liverpool?
Yeah, and I think to understand how Victorian, English men and women viewed Islam, Fatima Elizabeth's conversion story itself gives us a lot of information about that. So Fatima Elizabeth, she was born in Birkenhead, and she was the secretary to the Birkenhead temperance movement. And it was there that she, sat in a lecture entitled The Arabian Teetotaler. And that was referring to Prophet Muhammad, obviously being someone who's abolished alcohol from, Arabia. And in this lecture, it was the first time she hears something positive about Prophet Muhammad in public discourse. Abdullah himself, as most of, or a lot of people in Liverpool would know, was the first convert. He went to Morocco, he came back, and he was looking for ways to discuss Islam in public. And one of the ways he felt was, apt for him was the temperance movement, because he was also known as the temperance child. So he gave this lecture hoping to discuss Islam and Prophet Muhammad in positive light, because there was a lot of propaganda against Prophet Muhammad. And what Fatima Elizabeth then goes to ask him after the lecture gives us insight into what people, believed about Islam and the Prophet. So she went to him following the lecture, and the first question she actually asked him was, isn't it true that Prophet Muhammad said that women do not have souls and that they will not enter paradise? Obviously, Abdullah he responded with a no. And he told her not to listen to the propaganda around in England at the time, and not even to listen to himself, but rather to search the matter for herself. And then he gave her an English translation of the Quran by George Sales. And then she took this Quran and she studied it deeply. And later on in July of 1887, she accepted Islam and became one of the earliest, definitely the first Muslim woman in Merseyside. So it's a fascinating story for me, and to uncover it has been, it's been very rewarding, I would say.
It is a fascinating story. Now, Fatima died quite young, didn't she? She was only 35, buried in what was an unmarked grave in Anfield Cemetery, which sits between the two football stadiums. But now she's remembered there, isn't she, Hamid?
Yeah, it was in 2019 as part of my research that I went out to search for Fatima Elizabeth's grave. It was a bit of a challenge because, trying to find an unmarked grave in the Anfield Cemetery, which is like 8 times the size of the Liverpool football ground. So in 2019 it was unmarked, and it was just last year in 2022 that the converts from Liverpool, namely Sister Amira Scarisbrick, she fundraised for not just a gravestone to be placed by her grave, which now stands there, and it has the final stanza of one of the poems that she wrote.
Do you know what, Hamid? I could talk to you all day about Fatima, but we've got to let you go. Tell us about the book. What's it called, and where can we get it from?
So the book is Our Fatima of Liverpool, and you can get it from anywhere online. It's been published by Beacon Books, so you can get it directly from their website, or alternatively Amazon or any other online retailer.
Hamid, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and a great story. People here in Liverpool love their history, and this has really opened up something for us. Hamid Mahmood, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. What a great story that is, Carl. What a fantastic story. That's the first Muslim convert for a woman in Merseyside, certainly, but setting up being co-founder of the very first mosque in the country as well.
That's brilliant.
And what a great title for the book as well. Our Fatima. He probably never thought about that when he was writing the title on the book. But Our Fatima of Liverpool. It's fantastic.
It needs to be a film made about that.
You know what? That would make a great movie.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. It'd be compulsive viewing, most definitely.
Give your agents a call, Carl. That'd be brilliant. Carl, what's